Hey everyone, welcome to Interviewer Insights brought to you by Career Journey. We're joined with Leon again. We've just wrapped up his career journey, so if you haven't watched that, jump on over. He's now going to give us a bit of an insight into everything he does when it comes to interviewing. So thanks again for joining us, Leon.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Sam.
And the first question we always start off with, this is always very interesting as well because you're in the technical field. Are Are your interviews more casual, soft skills, sort of similar to a conversation that we're having now, or are they more technical, or is there a combination of all?
So I would say it's definitely more technical. With a but, we do keep a strong lookout for any sort of behavioral things that come up, and do make notes about this and ask next interviewers to follow up on these.
Okay, all right, perfect. And with those technical, is it like a two, three, four stage? How does it sort of look like for you guys over at Ivan?
Yeah, so it's actually something that we're trying to whittle down a bit. I believe these days it's a four-stage interview. So you'd have a recruitment screen, which will also include technical. Then you'll have hiring management screen, which would be mostly technical with some behavior towards the end. Then there's actually a take-home homework, which we try and keep as short as possible. And by short as possible, I'm like, I really want people to be able to complete things within an hour because
Yeah.
you don't want people to commit too much time to a job when there's so many other people trying to hire you as well. And then we've got the final round team interview, which is a live debugging session. Um,
Cool.
and actually, we've just added another round, which is called Raising the Bar, which is very much about kind of more casual, like how do you work type interviews.
Ah, cool. Ah, fantastic. Sounds super interesting. And with those technical interviews, do you have any advice on the best way to sort of prepare for those types? Because they can be quite full on.
They can be, agreed. And honestly, for us, what we're looking at in technical interviews is not necessarily to try and catch people out. It is to understand what their technical profile looks like. So you get people who are really good and strong on the Linux side, and then maybe a bit more lacking on the Python side, but then strong again in databases, or then a bit weaker in design. And it's kind of like we not expect if you're strong in all of them, great. But ultimately, whenever we do go to market, it's about finding somebody who can fit a niche that we have in the team right now. And so how do you prepare for it? Look, most of the questions are experience based. Where it does get hard is we do get people applying for Python positions when their main language has been, well, anything else really, and the Python knowledge will trip you up. So definitely, if you are going for a technical interview, at least try and get some idea of what's in it and do a little bit of prep. You
Yeah,
don't have to be an expert, but at least be prepped.
yeah, makes complete sense. Um, well, usually I ask another question first, but that sort of segues into the one after, which is we get this question a lot. Have you ever hired somebody out of a different career or a different realm that have been looking to step into a certain role that you're recruiting? And if so, what made you, I guess, was it the CV that they had done some certifications, or what made you take that risk?
Look, I've honestly only done it once.
Mhm.
We had a teacher who applied for a programming role, but she did do a master's degree in machine learning before she
Wow.
applied. Um, and what made us hire her in the end was it was very much neck and neck because it was a graduate position that was open. And I guess, when you're interviewing enough graduates, there's a certain kind of bar which everybody who steps over it, you kind of like, okay, cool, we're looking at these people now. And definitely the thing that made her stand out is the fact that she went above and beyond with the homework exercise.
But Leon, what are some of the red flags you look out for in the interview process?
Oh, okay. Definitely the ones that is an immediate, okay, we're not going to proceed. There's any sort of lying, like the interviewer knows when you're lying. It's like, especially with technical answers,
Yeah.
it's best just to be honest and say, look, I've never used this thing, and just move on to the next thing. Other red flags include, I guess, talking poorly about any colleagues or past employers. Really, it's like we've all had bad job experiences. It's going to happen. But at the end of the day, when we're interviewing people, we're trying to figure out, what can you offer the team that you're joining, and not what has gone wrong at your previous job.
Yeah.
Um,
Makes sense.
yeah.
Well, and then on that, say for example, they left their last workplace because it was very toxic, and you ask, look, why did you move on from your previous work? What sort of answer would you want them to give without saying, I guess, speaking ill of them? Because if you're saying it's a toxic environment, I didn't want to work there. Or is that an okay answer if you just say it overarching?
That is an okay answer, and it is in fact something that we do dig into interviews. Is have you ever had any sort of negative experiences? I guess where it gets important that you don't get too negative is when you ask the question about, I don't know, for instance, why are you using .NET 3.5 still? And you go, well, I've been telling people we should upgrade, and this architect guy refuses to let us do it, and la la la. It's like, okay, it's not a constructive answer.
Yes.
But definitely being able to talk about negative experiences and how you've dealt with it is definitely very worthwhile. The reality is we're all humans, and there are times that we don't get along, and it's important to be able to work through those situations, because at the end of the day, if you're working together at a business, chances are you're actually trying to achieve the same thing.
Yeah, perfect. And a lot of people get stumped on this, but at the end of the interview, obviously we try to, when we're coaching people or giving them advice, we always try to say, look, have the interview be free flowing. It's not just about them asking questions, it's about you asking questions as well. You want to be interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. But when it gets to the end, a lot of the way that they wrap up the interview is, do you have any questions for us? And I always love to ask this question as well. What sort of questions would you like to see the candidates be asking you?
Yeah, look, firstly, I love it when candidates do ask questions. Things that I like that people ask me is, what are you struggling with today? What type of problems are you trying to solve? What's frustrating you in your day-to-day work? Because that will actually give you good insight as well into what type of business you're moving into, and what sort of manager you might be reporting to, or team you might be working with. So anything that can kind of clarify, not necessarily the kind of job itself, as in the job spec, but the environment of what you will be working in. And I guess questions like the pressure of the environment, definitely worthwhile asking. But what I will say is you might not always get clarity on that, because it is very, I guess, personal.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
No, that makes sense. And what I want to touch on that, you mentioned, you know, ask what are the frustrating things in your day. Are you looking for that you're obviously going to give an answer. Are you looking for them to, if they've had the experience, go, oh, look, we had a similar thing. This is what we did to overcome it. Or are you still happy with them just going, ah, sorry to hear? Like, what sort of answer are you wanting back, if that makes sense?
No, I'm actually okay with whatever. It's really just showing that you are thinking about where you're going next, rather than just going, well, thanks for asking questions. I'm going to go have tea now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Perfect. And we get a lot of people ask, well, they get to the end of the process, and the feedback that they get is, look, technically sound, they were great, but unfortunately, you're not the right culture fit. How do you, one, define what's a good culture fit for you, and what sort of questions do you ask when trying to figure that out?
Yeah, so I mentioned we've got an extra step in our interview these days called raising the bar, and that really is about defining that culture fit. Companies like Amazon do this really well. They outline very clear what their culture is, and they tell you that we're going to ask you about this in our interview. To be honest, we're trying to get to a point where we're that clear about our culture. Honestly, we're not there. But certainly, what we do ask about and what we do check, and this is throughout the interview process, is do you align with the values of our business, which is openness. It's honestly one of the most open companies I've ever worked for in my life. Like every employee knows kind of what the current financial situation of the business is.
Oh, fantastic.
Um,
Yeah, that's great.
and ownership is a big one. Because you're a kind of a scale up, there is an incredible amount of work which kind of falls between the cracks, and you need people who's willing to go, cool, I'll own it. I'll sort it out. I'll get it to the next place. And the last one is courage. And courage can be a bit of a funny thing because you can be like, yeah, I was very courageous. I told somebody off.
Yeah.
So, but
Took me a lot to really tell them off. Yeah,
yes, but courage really is about like I was willing to challenge the status quo and willing to live with the results of the outcomes, you know. So, but like I mentioned, we do try and track this throughout the interview process. It's not always easy, but certainly you get a good idea on openness and ownership actually through a lot of the technical conversations, especially the more open-ended conversations.
yeah. So basically, all about the way that you're answering a question. You know, if it's ownership, you know, when have you made a mistake and go, look, well, this is when I made a mistake, and this is what I did to overcome it. Cool. Yeah.
Yep.
No, it makes complete sense. And I got the next two are controversial, which I love. um, so, do you need? I'll frame this in a two stage. Do you personally mind if somebody has a degree or not for the roles that you recruit? And then the other question is it mandatory in your company for somebody to have a degree for the roles that you recruit?
Yeah, I actually don't know if it's mandatory.
Yeah.
um, I personally don't mind. And it could quite honestly differ from person to from hiring manager to hiring manager in the org. But I've never seen it mandated anywhere. And I'll be honest, I only completed my own degree 6 years ago. So
Yeah. There you go. Oh, no, perfect. And the last one is references. Do you think that they're important to making a hiring decision? And do you do references still?
we do references. The reality is there are some security certifications that requires you to have references, so it just is what it is. The best reference, of course, is an internal referrer. You're never going to refer somebody that you think is not going to be able to do the job.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but when it comes to references, it's a bit of a funny one. Like it's nice having references, but the reality is, I'm not going to put a bad reference on my CV.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my opinion. Yeah, yeah. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I think, yeah, you're not going to put your current one because you don't want them looking. Then you're going to put some outdated ones, and they're usually going to be the best. But I think the best thing that you get is you get an insight to be like, well, look, how can I manage this person to the best of their ability? I think that's the really good thing that you get from a reference.
Yep.
But look, thank you so much again for your time, Leon. That was great to see behind the curtain. So appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, Sam.
Cheers.